This is the Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar.
Hello, everybody.
Nailed it. Joined as always by our Barth. That's a fit. That's a match. No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I have my ups and downs.
And then we're going to do ups and downs too.
Oh,
don't
actually,
worry.
do I?
Of course.
Because I got a new phone. I don't know if they went in the new phone.
Of course you didn't have it. You didn't do it.
They did. No, I have them. I did it, but I did it before I got the new phone.
Okay. He is loving this new phone.
I do.
All I hear
It's
about
been like
now
5 years since I got
all
it.
I hear about is how he has a new phone.
I said one thing
look
to you.
Oh, look at this.
I said one
it
thing
does
to you.
this. It does that. Like you're like a kid on Christmas that gets a new PlayStation.
New toy.
Oh my God! Look at it. It's a new toy. You're too old for toys. All right.
Never too old for toys. You're never too old for toys. You're never too old for candy. Happy Halloween.
How was your Halloween? Uneventful.
It was
Mine
solid.
too.
I'm trying to remember what the game was. Oh, it was that Jets-Steelers game. Or no, Jets
That was
Texans game.
That was a scary game.
It was a meh
It was a
game.
Halloween
It was
game.
I've seen tonight's game should be better. Tonight's game should be good.
There you go. Well,
Whoa, wait, no.
how do you like your phone?
I like it. How do you like your new computer?
Oh, it's great. I'm not
You
gonna
came
lie
up to me
you.
the other day.
I'm so excited. I had a big smile on my face. This is gonna sound like such a snobby thing to say, but I'm gonna say it anyways. So when I started here, they gave me a PC, and I'm not a PC guy. I'm a Mac guy, and I've been
Forget snob. You just be careful with sponsors here and all that.
That's a very good point. So I'm a one computer company guy and not
Yeah.
another computer company
Okay.
guy. And after my time here, finally, I've convinced the right people to give me the right computer, and I am beaming. It's got a great big screen, and the brightness and the battery's fantastic. It's so fast. It's a machine. I love it.
It is a machine. It's a computer. Yes, that's how it works.
It's a fantastic machine.
I'm not going to judge you for enjoying that. I have my new toy. I enjoy it. I'm still enjoying it. I'm glad you're enjoying your new toy.
I hope I didn't offend any sponsors like our great friends at Toyota. Hey, Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots. Toyota, let's go places. I used to have a Corolla, black on black Corolla. It's really nice.
I don't know if my friend had a Corolla. I don't know if I ever had a Corolla.
Yeah, so when I lived in LA, city driving stuff, you don't want a big car. So I had a black wheels, black everything.
Oh, you had the blacked out.
Yeah,
There
it
you
was
go.
nice. It was cool. I liked it. Also, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of your New England Patriots. All right, so I had a tough time figuring out where I wanted to start today because I have a lot of mixed feelings about the Patriots right now. Drake Maye is really showing us exactly what we all wanted to see. And there's two things that I keep coming back to from a big picture sense. And I was actually talking to John Rook about this on the playbook yesterday, and I really felt like it was a good conversation. There's two conversations to be had. One is all the little things that are going wrong week to week with this team that are stacking up to losses and the frustration of losing. And it's frustrating as fans, as people that cover the team, as the team itself. No one likes to lose. No one likes losing. I understand that. But I think the big picture thoughts that I keep coming back to are, one, every time I want to come on here or in written and just come on and rip the coaching staff for the lack of details or whatever they're not doing right in my eyes, right, from my perspective. You have to always see the forest for the trees a little bit and recognize that this team doesn't have a whole lot of talent on the roster, right? So you're not asking Vince Wilfork to plug the A gap, right? You're not asking Richard Seymour to rush the passer. You're asking guys and expecting things out of guys that, frankly, either weren't supposed to be there or aren't really up to the task. And so when I come on here and I take shots at the coaching staff or I critique the coaching staff, I do have to keep reminding myself of that. The other element of it that I keep reminding myself of is when we came into this season, if we came out of it feeling like they have a franchise quarterback in Drake Maye, isn't this season sort of a win just by that, right? Just because you found the guy at quarterback and you feel really good, and not like Mac Jones rookie year good, this guy can actually be a potential top 5 quarterback, MVP type quarterback in this league. Like if I had told you that, Alex, back in August, that we would feel by January that Drake Maye was truly a franchise quarterback type guy.
You did tell me that back in August.
Yeah, because I was right. I was ahead of the curve. But at the same time, like if I told you that was cemented this season,
you did tell me that.
Just play along.
I think there were talks of all pro votes, if I remember correct. Pro Bowl or all pro, one of them.
And look who was right.
I'm giving you credit.
Yeah. I mean, you're
who was? I know the clip's out there because there's
that
I forget his name. That guy who watches the show who pulls clips. It was the day
one?
of the Eagles practice, and
Yeah.
he tweeted out your quote about Drake Maye.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not ready to do any victory laps yet. It's too early. And there's still things that he needs to work on, and I want to get to that. Like it's not a finished product yet. I can't sit here and say that he's where he's exactly what I expected, which I think is different from what others expected. Like I am not surprised, and I didn't want to go to Drake yet, but like I'm not surprised by anything that we're seeing from Drake Maye because I always knew that he was capable of doing the things he's doing right now.
I would say he slightly surpassed my expectations. Now there are things he needs to work on, and those don't like the issues he's having. I'm not going to sit here and say there aren't issues. He's a rookie quarterback. There's going to be issues. I don't think there's been anything that's an issue that I look at and I say, well, I didn't expect that to be a problem, right? The turnovers, the reckless play, for lack of a better word. That's not exactly the word I want to use, but maybe being too reckless at times. Like, he needs to be better about that stuff, but I wouldn't say it's surprising. Like, that's kind of what you were signing up for. You knew you got what you signed up for with Drake Maye. I think there hasn't been a ton that you look at one way or the other and say, well, that was unexpected.
This is exactly, and this is a sort of part of my point, right? This is exactly what I expected him to be in his rookie season. I expected, because Frank, this is exactly what he was at North Carolina. Now, he was better at taking care of the ball at North Carolina, but it's also college versus the NFL. But in general, at North Carolina, and if you actually watch their games and talk to people down there and things like that, they'll tell you that he has 5 plays a game that make your jaw drop. Whether it's throws, running, out of structure, whatever, he has 5 plays a game that just make you go, holy crap, this guy is incredible. But at the end of the day, there's some bumps along the way, and sometimes the results as a team, the wins and losses, don't always come to fruition, and you wonder how much of that is him and how much of that is what's around him, and you have that whole conversation. But back to the original point, I want to give some grace to the coaching staff because of what they're working with. I don't think that they're working with great tools, right? But at the same time, they're doing things that shouldn't be about talent, right? Like they're doing things that are just hurting the team and making it more difficult for the team to win that have nothing to do with talent. You know, talking about lineup changes, and we're potentially going to see another one on the offensive line on Sunday. I still have not heard a great explanation from Gerard Mayo or Alex Van Pelt as to why Layden Robinson started that game on Sunday against the Titans and Jeffrey Simmons. I still haven't heard a great explanation. If they had come out and they had said 2 things that I think would have been good explanations. We felt like a right side of Robinson on when it was going to allow us to run the football. I could hear that. Those 2 guys are strong, powerful, good run blockers. Maybe I could hear that. But they didn't run the ball effectively, 1. And 2, that they haven't said that. Number 2, if they had said, at this point in our season, we're 2-6, we're 2-7 now, we just want to play the kids. And we just want to develop the roster and play the kids and see what these guys got so that we can get to next offseason. Okay, fine. I can hear those explanations. But if you're just trying to win the game on Sunday, like that was not the way to do it, right? Like that was not a good decision.
No, it wasn't. It annoyed me. Like we talked so much about building the continuity, and it felt like they were starting to do it and to make that move at the expense of your best offensive lineman. And I get it. You want to play the kids. And this is my theory. They just like Layden Robinson. He was their draft pick. City So wasn't. Right. Michael Jordan wasn't. And they want to get the kid in there and make it work. And I mean, they were talking about in camp, remember, thinking he was like, they're like, we think he can be one of the best guards in this league. Like, 3 weeks into camp, whatever
they
it was.
said that? I don't
Whatever.
remember that.
They were very. I remember them being like oddly high on him early in camp.
Yeah, look, I think he's got a potentially bright future. There's no doubt about that. But right now, as a pass protector, Layden Robinson is not NFL caliber. So you're putting a guy out there, and yeah, maybe you're hoping to develop him and all that, and I get that. But you're putting a guy out there that at the moment cannot pass protect at an NFL level. Now, this Bears front doesn't have a Jeffrey Simmons in the middle. You know, Montez Sweat's a really good edge rusher if he plays in this game, but they don't really have. They don't even have a Tavondre Sweat. The kid from Florida, I'm blanking on his name right now, is a decent player, but he's not Jeffrey Simmons, right? So they don't have one of those guys. But we're starting to see it Wednesday and Thursday in practice. We're starting to see another offensive line combination. You know, Mike Onwenu at left guard, Layden Robinson in at right guard, and we're starting to see more changes to this offensive line. The sequence before the half, which Alex Van Pelt said today was the most disappointing 2 plays of the entire game on Sunday, was also, to me, still don't have a great explanation. Like his explanation today of when you're running downhill 2 plays in a row, you should be able to get a yard, does not explain to me why you're prioritizing the yard in the 2-minute drill, right? Like if you throw the ball on 2nd and 3rd down and you find a completion, the assumption is that you're going to pick up the first down organically. Like you shouldn't have to be stressed about picking up a yard. You know, so they went in there, they kind of put the offense back into the 4 corners, and they just sort of parked the car to prioritize a yard. And then his lament is, well, we couldn't pick up the yard. Okay, but if you throw on 2nd and 1 and Drake Maye hits a 10-yard pass on 2nd and 1, then we don't even have to worry about 3rd and 1, right? Like that's where I don't understand that one. And we can obviously get into this as well a little bit. In overtime, taking the wind, or not taking the wind, or whichever way you want to put it, kicking.
Let's call it not factoring in the wind.
Not factoring in the wind, to not confuse people. It's just, what's the word? Like, it just is not paying attention to the details, right? Like, and you have to be more buttoned up than that. Which way the wind is blowing has nothing to do with who is playing left guard for you, right? Or who is playing defensive tackle for you against the run, or
you can have an all-pro team out there, the wins, and it might be mitigated, but it's all the more reason. And this is something I talked about this coaching staff at the beginning of the year. Like, they were going to have to elevate the players, right? The roster being what it is, all the more reason every little detail has to be locked down. I found the Layden Robinson quote, by the way.
Yeah.
I over-remembered it a little bit. It was also after the first regular season game. It wasn't in camp.
Yeah.
This was in response to the first game after the Bengals. There was a point during training camp where not only myself, but I think the other coaches saw it.
Who is this?
This is Gerard, sorry.
Okay.
There was a point in time during training camp where not only myself, I think the other coaches saw it. We said Layden Robinson has an opportunity to be a special player in this league. He's tough. He'll move guys off the line of scrimmage. He can do it all. His overall effort and mentality is something that, when you think about changing a culture, he's definitely one of those guys that fits into that box. He did a great job. Now, saying that, it's only one game. We'll see how that continues to progress going forward. That sounds like a guy that you're going to try to, and granted, this was 2 months ago.
Yeah.
But that's the description of a guy the coaching staff believes should be in the lineup no matter what.
Yes.
And you go to that culture stuff. So that's where it's like, again, I'm not telling you Layden Robinson is just going to suck for all of eternity, but he's not ready yet.
Yeah.
You even look at it, Mike Onwenu was a great comp for this. He sat in 21, and I know there were some external circumstances there, but he sat in 21, and it made him a better player in 22.
Yeah.
So, like, Layden Robinson, sorry, you just said a lot, so I just wanted, I was looking for the quote, so I want to get to it. Layden Robinson being in the lineup right now is not what's best for Layden Robinson. It's also not what's best for Drake Maye. I get play the kids. I understand that. You play the kids as a baseline, understand what you have. I think they should more or less know where Layden Robinson's at this point, and he doesn't look like a guy who should be on the field, especially when your best offensive lineman is a right guard. And you keep moving him around, you're not going to allow him to maximize his game. You risk agitating the guy. I know he just got paid, but you risk agitating the guy. Layden Robinson's not a guy, if anything, try him at left, but he's a liability in pass protection right now. And how many times have I said this with the receivers? Ideally, what's best for Drake Maye and what's best for Layden Robinson is the same thing. Right now, it's not. And you have to default to the quarterback. For the end of the half thing, people probably have the speech memorized at this point, right? Like,
I haven't been like that hot and bothered by the end of the half stuff because this isn't usually my side
because you don't
of the
care
street.
because you don't believe that the clock matters in
No.
a football game. Play 40 minutes, play 70 minutes. You don't care.
That aside, the part that annoyed me about the end of the half was the play call, like deciding to run the ball.
So
there.
the way
it has nothing to do with managing the clock or anything like that. Like this, it's about the actual play calling of running the football there. And I get it. You think so, but what's
okay,
the
so let me
goal?
ask you
Like,
this.
what's the goal? So you pick up the yard. Sorry, but just like, what's
Yeah.
the goal? Like, you pick up the yard, and now it's 1st and 10 at what the 40-yard line. Let's call it, right. They gained 24 yards on first down. To Kendrick Bourne back-to-back plays. I think it was 23 yards.
Right, and by the way, an out route to the sideline that the Titans were just giving them.
Yeah.
I don't want to take anything away from Drake or Kendrick Bourne, but like, it wasn't exactly throwing it into a keyhole.
So we're talking like it's 1st and 10. Let's call it from their own 40-yard line.
Yeah.
So. What's the goal?
Well, but the situation plays into that. On one hand, like, you have less time, even more reason to go for the chunk. The other one is, for whatever reason they're botching these.
Right.
Would you say they got too cute in that situation? Would you say they maybe overthought it? Let me use that. Would you say they overthought the situation?
I don't know if overthought or too cute's the right word for it. I just feel like their priorities are out of whack. Like, in my opinion, when you're in that situation, the most important things are the clock, the field position, and getting points.
Okay,
right?
but this is my point. You're saying like the clock, the situation does matter. The situation it was in emphasizes the mistake of the play calling.
Right.
And this is my point. For whatever reason it is, when you get the ball inside of 2 minutes at the end of the first half, you have the ball. The one thing you cannot do is give the ball back to the opponent. Ideally, you want to score. That's great. Touchdown would be preferred. You take a field goal in some cases. But there are some instances, like I know people didn't like they ran the clock out against the Jets. I understand the frustration with that, but
at least you picked a lane.
At least you picked a lane, and also it's like, yeah, your starting quarterback got hurt. Okay, I get it. But they had a plan and they executed it. They've had 6 of these opportunities now this year, which, by the way, is kind of wild that this is coming up almost every single game. They've had it 6 times in 9 games where they get the ball with a minute and a half to 2 minutes to go and multiple timeouts, and it's either go try to score or take the ball to the half. The one thing you absolutely cannot do is punt or turn the ball over. Like, you can't give the ball back. I give them credit for 1.5 of 6. Right, the Texans game they got, although it took Drake Maye going Superman.
That's the thing is like the Texans one they got by default. Like, and I have a bigger point about that.
But sometimes like I don't necessarily hate if the plan is sometimes counting on Drake Maye to be Superman.
Yeah,
he's the 3rd overall pick.
Yeah,
like, fine.
Yeah.
So I give them that. I give them half of a credit for the Jets one because they executed a plan. Maybe it wasn't the plan that should have been, but they executed a plan. So that's a 25% success rate in what is a crucial, especially when some of these have been potential double scores.
That was the other point I was going to
25 per, or they've set up on the inverse double scores for the other teams. Now they didn't get burned as bad as they should have in this one because Tennessee also threw up all over themselves.
Yeah.
That was also a terrible 2-minute drill by the Titans.
Right.
It wasn't the worst 2-minute display we've seen this way by the year. The Miami game, both teams still worse.
Yeah.
But the point being, you should not be succeeding 25% of the time in what are massively key situations in football games. And Gerard Mayo talked about we can't be mistake repeaters, right? Early in the year.
Yeah.
It's time and time and time again. And they did it the first time. And, Mayo acknowledged we have to be better. They did it the second time. Mayo acknowledged it was just like the first time. We screwed that up. 6 times in, I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Are they not learning anything?
No, I just don't. And this is my bigger point of it all. When it comes to this situation, and in really the win situation too, they just don't have control of the situation. Like, they don't know. It doesn't feel like they have a plan. Like, they don't know what they're trying to do, so they get caught in like this middle sort of situation of like, okay, we We go pass on the first two plays of the 2-minute drill. Now we're in 2nd and 1, and now we're running, right? And we're getting caught in the middle here of, all right, are you being aggressive or are you being conservative? Like, why did you throw the ball on the first 2 plays of the drive if you wanted to be conservative? Because running it on 2nd and 3rd down is conservative. There's
been times they've gone like run, pass, and it was, the approach conservative versus aggressive.
Yeah.
I think they overthought it, and they got too – I think the overall approach was being aggressive.
Yeah.
But they saw the 2nd and 1 and their eyes lit up and they were like, ooh, easy first down. Right? I don't think it was suddenly let's get conservative.
That's like the whole thing to me, though, because I
know that's ultimately a conservative approach, but I don't think they got to the when I hear conservative 2-minute drill, I don't think they got to the 40 and decided, we got to start running the clock.
Yeah.
Right? I think they got that point and said, all right, let's pick up a quick first down and boom, we'll get back to throwing the ball.
Right.
When 2nd and 1, take a shot. That's the cleanest. And when I say that's the most obvious opportunity to take a shot, all right, well, the Bears are probably going to sit on it and fall back. Then he hit Pop Douglas on an underneath crosser and let him run with the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
You have so much at your disposal in that situation if you're the Patriots twice.
Yeah.
And they didn't take advantage of it.
I think your point about what their thought process was spot on.
Yeah.
It's 2nd and 1. The opponent probably thinks we're going to try to take that shot. So instead, we're going to hand it gun run, by the way, is what they ran. We're going to gun run. I think it was with JaMychal Hasty. And maybe we pick up a free 8 yards on this gun run right here. Gives us a new set of downs. Now we're around midfield, and then maybe we'll take a shot when we're around midfield. I can hear all of that, and this is where execution versus process comes in. Like, if they pick up the blocks and they make that happen, then we're probably not necessarily talking about it in this way. I just philosophically, I just disagree with prioritizing the first down there. I just don't agree that is the most important thing. I think the most important thing are the clock and the field position that you're in, right? Yards in the clock are the 2 things you should be prioritizing there, not the first down. And the last thing I want to say about this whole spiel, with the wind situation in overtime. So
I've been touching that too. Just can't. There's no way around it. Can't have it.
So I'm going to draw it up. All right.
All right.
I'm going to draw it up because I want to show everybody here why I think that
you're going to need like a Sharpie or something. That's not going to show up on a white piece of paper.
I think it's not going to show up. Can we zoom in?
Do we have a Sharpie back there? There we go. Let's
maybe
get
a Sharpie.
I'll go get it too because I want to get a water.
I want to show you guys, if I can, with this Sharpie.
There you go.
I'm going to try. I personally, and look, I got pushed back from on PU for this because it was a little bit of a homer take, a little bit of a Drake Maye take. Shocker. I personally think that taking the wind or not, or whatever the heck we're talking about.
Failing to factor in the wind.
Sure. Failing to factor in the wind cost the Patriots a walk-off 60-yard touchdown in overtime.
Tom Brady and Troy Brown in Miami. That was my fault.
If we can zoom in on this, this is the play call, right? There you go. Okay, so these crossing routes here, this like little leak out route into the flat and this crossing route right here, right? The idea here is to hold the post safety up here at the top of the screen. This right up here up top, that's Amani Hooker, right? Like that.
I don't know why you didn't draw the defenders.
I ran out of space. That's Amani Hooker right up here, right? So what you want to do is they're going to roll out Drake Maye to his right.
Oh, this is I thought that was the whole drawing. Okay, this is in progress.
Okay, so we're going to roll Drake Maye out to the right. He's going to roll out right, and then what he's going to do is he's going to hope that this safety right up top here, Amani Hooker, is going to follow him right to the right, thinking that he's going to throw this second-level crosser right here that I drew. Guess what happens? He rolls to his right. The crosser runs to the right. Where does Amani Hooker go? He goes with Drake Maye in the crossing route. Kayshon Boutte is now one-on-one.
You got to straighten that out. It's angled a little bit. Other way. All right, whatever. Just keep going.
Kayshon Boutte now is one-on-one on the post up top, right?
Yep.
If Drake Maye, who has a howitzer, he's got a rocket, and we know it. He can launch it, right? This throw right here, the roll right, throw back to the post on the left. We have watched every single quarterback for like 5 years make this throw at his pro day, right? This is the pro day throw.
This is the Zach Wilson throw.
This is the Zach Wilson throw that's turned into every single big arm quarterback making this throw in the pro day. I am telling you right now, I've seen Drake Maye make that throw a dozen times. And what happens, he rolls to his right, the ball gets caught up there in the air, and all of a sudden, Amani Hooker is on the other side fielding it like a punt. That's not Drake Maye. Right? Drake Maye can get the ball there, no problem. So I don't know if Kayshon Boutte catches it. I don't know if he doesn't get tackled right by the corner that's covering him in coverage. Hey, it's all possible. All right, I'm telling you it's all possible. What I'm telling you is that the wind made it 10 times harder for him to get the ball there than it needed to be. If Drake Maye is throwing with the wind at his back, I feel really, really strongly that play is completed to Kayshon Boutte. And we are talking about a totally different game. And that's why right there that the coaching staff, in my opinion, not prioritizing the wind in that situation really cost them. And that part of it is extremely frustrating because it's a controllable, right? There's things that you can't control and things that you can't control. That is a controllable, and the Patriots should have been on that. And hopefully you guys could actually see what I drew up. But
no, it actually showed up.
Enough people have posted it on Twitter. I don't think that Kendrick Bourne falling down had as much of a role in it. It obviously wasn't ideal. I'm not in Amani Hooker's head. Like, maybe it did play a role, but it looked to me like he was already opening to the post before Kendrick Bourne slipped down. But obviously, it could have been a factor on the play. I think the wind was the biggest factor. I think Drake Maye underthrowing the ball deserves a little bit of criticism as well, obviously. But the coaching staff, again, these are just things that are actively hurting the team. And I really felt like watching it live. I felt like watching it on film that Kayshon Boutte was open on the play. And I definitely think that Drake Maye is capable of getting him the football there. And I'm glad we did that. See, a little drawing. What did you think about that whole situation?
Yeah, regardless, like, you just got to be aware enough to take the wind. I'm with you. Like, the ball definitely got caught up. Is it complete? I don't know. But yeah, things like that change the game. And the things that people, used to get bled a lot, right? No, the win. Remember, when Bill took the win
against Denver
and everybody thought it was over. No, these things impact the football game. Not every time, and you don't know how they're going to do it, but leave no stone unturned.
That was, look, I'm going to get to Alex Van Pelt here in a second. And I do think there's some things that you can criticize him for, but I really liked the intent of that play. Because to me, that was, let's go freaking win the game, right? And, I love that mindset. That's the mindset I want Drake to have. That's the mindset I want the team to have.
Oh, I like the play call. I have no problem with the play call.
Yeah, and let's go win the effing game. And unfortunately, the situation just didn't allow them to go ahead and make that play happen the way that it should. If you watch the play back, Amani Hooker is not there at first, right? He kind of drifts over just like I described, and he drifts back into the middle of the field when he sees Drake Maye load up. I don't think that he would have recovered to that post as quickly as he needed to if the ball had been thrown on the line. Like, Drake Maye could throw it, and I know he's capable of throwing it. He fielded it it looked like Devin McCourty picking off Zach Wilson, like it was like an arm punt. Right. Yeah, that's not how Drake Maye throws a deep ball. No. We all know that. So that part of it was too bad. In terms of Drake Maye, I do want to talk about the pros and cons. You're smiling over there a lot. Are people making fun of my drawing?
Somebody send me something.
Nice drawing. I thought I did a good job.
You did do a good job at that. USF, they play at the Buck Stadium right now.
Yeah.
They're building an on-campus stadium. They just released the renderings.
Why is this what you're smiling about?
Because if you're going to make a rendering of your stadium, why would you make that the score in the rendering? It's 28-3.
What do they have? What's that have to do with anything?
Why would you pick the most? Why would you use that score?
What does USF care about 28-3?
Everybody knows what 28-3 is. Why would you put yourself up 28-3? You're inviting jokes. People, I'm smiling because some people are sending me 28-3 jokes.
Oh my god, dude. This is a sicko thing, isn't it?
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right. Calm down over there. Okay. I want to talk about Drake Maye. I know I just said that he probably would have hit a 65-yard touchdown if it wasn't for the wind. That probably sounds like a giant excuse. I had all three of the turnovers in this game, at least partially on him, if not fully on him. I think the first one is just obvious, right? I mean, it's just a bad play. It's a Mac Jones-esque interception. Just can't happen. The fumble, got to have a better internal clock and better pocket awareness than that, especially because he starts on the left side of the field. When his eyes are on the left side of the field, like he should be able to see out of the corner of his eye that Arden Key is getting around Vidarian Lowe, right? Like that should be in his peripheral vision, and he should be able to spot that happening. I do think he was trying to underhand it to JaMychal Hasty, so the underhand early on in the game that worked to Ramondre Stevenson might have kind of gave him a false sense of security a little bit to try that sort of thing. And so instead of getting two hands on the football and protecting the football, he tried to lateral it out to Hasty. Wasn't the best decision. And then obviously the pick in overtime too was an underthrown, maybe a little bit late on the pass as well. The thing that I would say with Drake, though, on top of the fact that I think that he's on the whole, I had him with like 16 plus plays in this game, which is a really high number, really good number. I think on the whole, he's playing very, very well outside of the turnovers. But what I see with Drake a lot right now, and the scrambles, I think, back this up. I thought all of 8 of his scrambles in this game were legitimate scrambles, meaning he wasn't hitting the top of the drop and leaving early or missing open receivers and running instead. Like, it wasn't the young quarterback stuff that sometimes you hear about or you see about. What I'm seeing a lot with Drake, and the numbers back this up, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league out of structure. He's one of the best scrambling and running quarterbacks in the league already, like 3.5 starts into his NFL career. But right now, they're way too reliant on him being Superman. And when you force your young quarterback to play like Superman and drop back to pass 53 times, then you're going to have some negative plays on top of the positive plays, and there are going to be turnovers and there's going to be issues. So I bring into question a lot of things. And, the scheme, I think, is one of them. Like, I think too much of the scheme right now is just like, F it, Drake, go do something, right? Like, go make a play, kid.
Well,
like,
and I think he's starting to internalize that, which is where you get into this conversation of worrying about bad habits. Like, I tweeted this after the game. Everything about Drake Maye's approach right now screams an internal dialogue of, I guess I'll have to do it myself. And I kind of understand why he feels that way. You have receivers dropping balls left and right. The offensive line can't block. The play calling's a little vanilla, right? I sort of get why he feels like that. And look, you drafted the kid 3rd overall. Like, you do want him to carry your offense.
Absolutely.
But as a rookie, to do it to this extent, it's going to create a very volatile situation.
Yeah.
And you've seen a very volatile play. There's been some incredibly high highs, but he has turned the ball over 6 times in essentially 3 games.
Yeah.
So
He's has the highest turnover-worthy play rate in the NFL right now.
Right. So, like, look, long-term, the help should be coming.
Yeah.
And we can do DK Metcalf, T. Higgins,
Right.
Will Campbell, whatever. We can do that till the cows come home. Those guys aren't getting here for a couple more months, at least. So, to me, right now, they need to find a way, work with him to find a way, and this is where we get into the Josh Allen of it all, where I get it. He's never going to be a traditional drop back, 3-step, hit the back foot, get it out, passer. Turnovers are always going to be a part of his game. He's never going to play the cleanest quarterback game ever, but you live with it because of some of the things he can do out of structure. But you don't want him mentally becoming so reliant on, again, I guess I'll just have to do it myself, right? And is there a way they can take some of the load off of him with the way things exist right now to just get to the end of the year without, again, making him do too much? At some point, the offense is going to be built significantly around him. This isn't me saying you can't let the kid do anything, but there's too much on his plate right now.
Yeah,
there's too much.
Yeah, so it's a great way of putting it. Like, how do we get through the next 7? What is it? 9 games? 7 games? 9 games?
They played 9, so 8.
8 games.
Yeah.
Bad at math. How can
we don't do math on this show.
How can we get through the next 8 games with him having? Yeah.
I was going to answer the question.
Oh, with him developing good habits and making plays, but not having him default to playground mode so often.
So,
yes, Alex.
One way, there's a couple ways. One way, start running the football.
Well,
start right. Like
that's. I feel like that's something that they've always wanted to do, but that's easier said than done.
He's their leading rusher
Yeah.
since he took over as the starter, and he only played a quarter of one of those games. Not only is he their leading rusher, Evan, since week 6, he has more rushing yards than everybody else combined.
Yeah.
By like 50.
Yeah.
Like, part of it, I think, right now is teams are just, they're not, they can key in on him so much because there's no run game. And that's only going to get worse. I think the quickest way out of this is to start establishing the run.
Yeah. So, along those lines, I think my biggest complaint right now with Van Pelt is that the offense, to me, is way too, we're going to force Drake into our scheme versus we're going to cater the scheme to Drake. And there's got to be some sort of balance
There's
there.
give and take there, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not one of these people that thinks it should be 100% just everything that Drake wants to do or that's best for Drake, because the way I look at it, and I think this is going to, I don't know 100%, but I'm curious about how this goes with Jaden Daniels. Because I think right now the scheme that Cliff Kingsbury is running in Washington for Jaden Daniels is very much basically just LSU's offense. Like, they're basically just running LSU's offense at a pro level. And more times than not, maybe with Jaden Daniels, this won't happen, and he just transcends this. But more times than not, the league catches up to that kind of thing, right? They'll catch up to it. So eventually, you have to play a traditional quarterback. Like, you have to play drop back quarterback, and it's not all going to be bells and whistles, and it's not all going to be college offense and RPO and zone read and all that kind of stuff. With that being said, it would be nice to dabble in that kind of thing, and especially because their traditional run game's going nowhere, and therefore, as Van Pelt told us today, their play-action passing game is going nowhere. The Patriots, in my mind, need to be more creative on first and second down, and the way to be creative, if you ask me, and I've kind of flip-flopped on this because I sort of heard last week what Van Pelt was saying about incorporating more design runs for Drake Maye in the offense, and how it was going to leave him vulnerable to even more body blows than what he's already being susceptible to. But I think you almost have to create some more easy offense on first and second down. And let's not lose sight of the fact that just because he has the option to run on a zone read or the option to run on an RPO doesn't necessarily mean he has to run. A lot of it is just eye candy or just sort of gravity for the defense, that if you're running a zone read, like, you have to respect the backside with the quarterback. Like, you can't just crash down on the running back because he has a threat there to keep it. Or maybe there's like a slant coming into the window for a linebacker, and you have to make that decision. Am I going to crash into the hole and into the line of scrimmage here, or am I going to play the pass? And those types of things just open up space for whether it's a throw, a pass, a run for the quarterback, or a run for the running back. So seeing more of that kind of stuff, I think, is almost a must, because their offense right now, in my mind, is too drop back centric, and it's too difficult for them to execute consistently, not just for Drake, but also for the pieces around it. Like, you need receivers to run good routes and get open, and spacing and timing and rhythm, and offensive line to pass protect, and like all these things need to marry together for them to execute plays after play after play after play. And there's just a lot on Drake's shoulders to make that happen right now, and that's why every 5, I think it's 5.7% of the time, it's a turnover-worthy play, which is a high number. So I love in the past what we've seen, with these types of quarterbacks. I call them Philly-style RPOs. I love the Eagles' RPO package. I think it's one of the best the league has ever seen. In Philly-style RPOs, there are 3 options. He can hand the ball off, he can run it himself, or he can throw it.
It's the modern day triple option.
Yeah, and it's almost like it's almost like 2 separate plays in one, where the inside handoff is kind of the first play. And then the second play is run or pass for the quarterback once he decides to keep the football and he sort of gets on the edge and has some space. We've seen Jalen Hurts really be the best at it, but other teams have run this with mobile quarterbacks, especially young ones, Anthony Richardson's, like those types of players.
Because it's all over college football. This is everywhere in college football.
So, you give him, it's usually the Eagles like to run curl flat or, stick or whatever, where it's just like a slant, or a curl route, right, with a little flat attached to it on the back side of the play. And then he reads the defender, on that side of the field to determine whether he's going to give it to the back or he's going to keep it. And then he has all sorts of options, all over the place. That's not a traditional West Coast offense thing. Like, that's not a Shanahan, Tree, Stefanski, McVay, LaFleur. Like, they don't really run that kind of stuff conventionally. But when you can't conventionally run the football, this is the way that you sort of unlock your early down offense. And I feel like that's something that Drake's done in the past at North Carolina. I think it's something that he'd be comfortable with doing. And it also allows him to just be an athlete out there, and it sort of simplifies reads for him and things like that. I'm not saying that has to be their entire early down offense, but I definitely think that would help their early down offense, and then you save the good drop back plays for third down and maybe mitigate how often you have to actually go to your drop back game. Because right now, to me, it's not just that they're passing a lot, it's that they're dropping back a lot. Like, they're not... There's no play action. There's no bells and whistles to what they're dropping back to.
Not a ton of motion, not a ton of screens, not a ton of...
So it's all just on Drake to ID coverage, read it out, receivers to get open, blockers to block. Like, it's all just on execution then at that point, and we know that they have a talent gap disadvantage in a lot of weeks.
I think that's well said.
All right. Is there anything else on Drake that I wanted to get to?
I'll give the other side of it because I know how you view them. Like, the turnovers do need to come down.
Yeah.
The turnovers do.
But this, to me, like, that's why I'm talking about this kind of stuff, because I think the turnovers are happening at such a high volume because of the high volume of throws that he's making
I get that.
game.
But the fumbles, things like that, like, this is a Bears defense that does turn the ball over a good amount.
Yeah.
This would be a good week for him to show, like, and because I see people say, how can you say he played well? He turned the ball over 3 times. And this goes back to what I said at the beginning. His plays surpassed my expectations a little bit. I thought there'd be a little bit more of a learning curve than this, but I expected you're going to see some really impressive, high-level, big-time throws, and you're going to see some turnovers. If he's still turning the ball over like this in January, I'm going to be pretty worried if he's still turning the ball over to this clip.
I'll give him until next year, just
even
because
into next year. Yeah.
I think just because of the supporting cast.
Because of the talent. But, the way he's turning the ball over is not sustainable. Let me be clear about that.
I would say the reason why they're losing games is because he's turning the ball over.
I'm with you on that. It's not sustainable. But he's 4 starts into his career. Yeah. There were no expectations of them making the Super Bowl this year. But you got to see signs of improvement. You opened up by talking about, well, what was this season really about?
Yeah.
Do they have a franchise quarterback? I would add to that as a whole, especially from the quarterback and the coaching staff. The quarterback... The people you want to be here beyond this year. So you can also throw in guys like Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah.
You can throw in a guy like
Keon White,
Douglas. The young receivers, even the guys that aren't playing well, but ideally are part of this core moving forward. And Alex Van Pelt's a big part of this too. Are you better in December and January than you were in September? That doesn't mean it has to look great, but and the growth isn't going to be linear. It may be 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But at the end of the day, are they better at the end of the year than they are now? So Drake being where he is right now, the turnovers are concerning, but fine. Cut them down. Same thing for Alex Van Pelt. I do understand to an extent if the offense is a little more stripped down at this point because you're trying to ease the kid in.
Yeah.
You can't run a stripped down offense for 12 games, right? So it's been 4 so far. As I've seen some people talk about the play calling, and you just kind of talked about it. If the plan early was we're going to keep it pretty black and white for him through the first month just to get him going, I understand that. I know it's frustrating to watch. I understand that. I don't think he's checked the box for the black and white stuff. Let's start mixing in some color, right? Let's get the.
So my question is, I agree with you. Like I feel like, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but like I feel like some people harp way too much on the actual sequencing of play calls. Like,
I think that's important.
Oh, he runs the ball too much on first down. Or my bigger problem with Van Pelt right now is play design, right? Which are 2 different things. Like, what are the actual designs or the concepts that you're running in this offense and for this offense? Because I'll just give you another example that's not even Drake related. Like, they're running a ton of outside zone still.
Yeah.
And I just don't think they have the horses up front, or I don't really think that it fits Ramondre Stevenson all that well to be so outside zone heavy.
So just let me see it develop. Like, let me see
Yeah.
it progressively get better as the year goes on. That's kind of what I'm looking for here. And, it's a good week to start. He had the first 2 starts. Are they going to start ramping up? He gets hurt. He didn't have a full week of practice last week. Okay. Like, he's good. And it'd be great if I could say they have an offensive line set. Unfortunately, we might not be able to say that.
But is he capable? Is Van Pelt capable of designing an offense that factors in Drake's mobility? Because
and just evolving the offense as a whole.
Yeah, because right now I feel like Drake's mobility is all out of structure, right? It's all scrambles on drop back. And the problem with that is that it's not really yet, and maybe it will in terms of game plan, and like now we have to rush him differently or we have to spy him.
I'm surprised teams aren't spying him more even already.
That's a factor, but it's not building his mobility into the offense. Like, building his mobility into the offense is the stuff that I was just talking about with Philly, or what the Washington Commanders are doing with Jaden Daniels. That's using his mobility as like a trump card, no pun intended, right? That's that ability there.
And like I said last week, I agree with the general consensus of we don't want to overrun him because we don't want the physical toll. I'm all for erring on the side of run him not enough versus run him too much. But they have some room before they even get to, they're not even close, I think, to that line right now. They can afford to get a little closer to that line.
I think he'd run less. I really do, because I don't think that it would always be it. You think of zone read and you think of Lamar Jackson running the ball in a game 10, 15 times, in a playoff game or something like that. But I don't think that would necessarily be the case. It's more just threatening the defense and making the defense respect the fact that Drake Maye has the athleticism to make you pay on a run like that. And it doesn't have to, last week I watched the Cardinals-Bears game, right, on film. Yeah. The Cardinals ran for 213 yards against this Bears defense, who are terrible against the run, which we'll get to later in the show. But they ran for 213 yards on the ground. You want to guess how many of them were by Kyler Murray?
A lot.
6.
Oh.
6.
Yeah, so you should be able to run the ball this week.
So Kyler Murray ran for 6 yards in the entire game. But Kyler Murray's legs are factors on these plays that they're running, right? His threat of being able to keep the football is a factor, but he's not actually going out there and literally keeping the football. So I think that's big, and it will help him, I believe, cut down on turnovers and cut down on some of the mistakes, because it's a different type of offense, right? It's an unconventional type of offense. Yep. I just think their offense is too old school right now for what they have personnel-wise. There's got to be some more creativity and some more bells and whistles to what they're doing. And there just isn't right now. And you have a young quarterback that's now trying to read through progressions and ID coverage and keep himself protected and all these different types of things. I don't blame him for just defaulting to running on some of these plays, because it's nobody's open. The line, I got pressure coming off the left side. What else am I going to do here? I'm just going to run. And I get where his head is at with all of that. And I think managing it almost helps. I think incorporating it into the offense almost helps him manage scrambling. It will help
Makes sense.
Do it less. The last thing I want to say about Drake Maye, and then we can do 3 up, 3 down and open up the phone lines and the emails. The big thing that I was really impressed with and have been impressed with throughout is his ability right now to throw in the pocket is better maybe than I expected. This might be the one area where I'm actually think that was maybe exceeding expectations. I would say below I did not expect him to turn the ball over this much.
Oh, I kind of did.
He didn't play like this in college.
All right, but he's not in the ACC anymore.
Yeah, that's fair.
He's in the AFC East, so it's close, but
that's fair.
Especially since he hasn't played the Bills.
But in terms of the one thing that I think might be a little bit better than expected is just some of the completions, for example, to Hunter Henry in this game, where they bring pressure and he just knows exactly where he's going with the football to beat pressure. Sight adjust, hot route, boom, ball is out. Top of the drop, on time, really IDing, pressure and rotation really well. That type of stuff is pretty next level for a young quarterback. To be doing that kind of stuff already is really impressive. The 4th down throw, the gotta have it 4th down late in the game to Hunter Henry. That's conventional from the pocket offense. That's not the last play of the fourth quarter, right, where he's running around like a crazy person. That's a really good, nice conventional play. I thought he made a really great throw, not the crossing route, not the highlight throw, but the one to Pop Douglas on the little out of empty where he kind of dropped the arm angle a little bit and just sort of put it out there for him. Really nice throw. Like those are the conventional offense types of throws that give you a lot of positive vibes about Drake. All right. Did you do 3 up, 3 down?
I did 2 and 4, but yes.
You did it, though.
I did it.
All right, you go.
I've been doing it. Like, I do it every week. I don't know why this is a thing. First up, is going to sound weird, Ramondre Stevenson. Outside of what the running game is struggling as a whole. He has, I think, 76 yards total in the last 3 weeks, 83 before contact, or 83 after contact.
Yeah.
So we're still on this thing where he's getting hit behind the line of scrimmage regularly. I think he's doing as much as he can. But when you look at what he did catching the football, when you look at what he did as a pass protector, Drake had that one scramble late. Was it on the final drive of regulation or in overtime where it should have been like a 3 or 4 yard scramble? Ramondre gets out in front, sets a nice block in overtime, and it ends up being like, I think, a 15-yard gain. Ramondre Stevenson, his usage rate's up over 50%. Like, he's still doing a ton for them.
Yeah.
And I know people are going to roll their eyes. How are you having a running back when they can't run the ball? They need to run the football better. If we were to list the biggest issues with their inability to run the ball, I don't know that Ramondre Stevenson in the top 3 right now. Like, he's doing his part. He's doing as much as he can. He's finding other ways to contribute. He was good for them in this game.
Yeah, I agree. The underhand flip, we talked about it briefly earlier. That's just a great individual play by Ramondre Stevenson too. Like, it's a great play by Drake, obviously, as well. But he takes out the blitzing linebacker, chops down the blitzing linebacker, gets back up off the ground after chopping the guy down, makes himself available to the quarterback, and is the outlet for Drake Maye on the play with under pressure. Like, that's a really heads-up play by him, too. And obviously the touchdown at the end of regulations a really heads-up play by him as well. I mean, it's just a good play, just to box out the guy and make the catch. So I understand where you're coming from with Ramondre. I just mentioned him. My number 1 up again was Hunter Henry. I just think that he's been one of their best players overall this season. 7 catches on 8 targets, 56 yards. Just whenever they really need to have it, the 4th down play I just mentioned earlier, that was to Hunter Henry. A couple really good throws over the middle against blitzes where he's just right where he needs to be, right where the quarterback is expecting him to be, and on time. Just such a quarterback's best friend type of player for a young QB. I just think that if I had to rank the Patriots' best players on the year, I might have Hunter Henry as their best overall player right now.
He's certainly been pretty much the only consistent on offense.
Yeah.
And that's saying something. Yeah, he was good in this game. He's been really good.
Yep, next.
Again, this is going to sound weird to some people. Jelani Tavai.
Better game.
This is the second game. He did have one play. He had 2 plays where he got shook out of his shoes. One of them ended up coming back on a penalty, but made a couple stops against the run, was all over the field, made a nice play on that interception.
Yeah.
It's trending in the right direction with him, which is good because I don't know that totally fixes the defense, but that would be a big help if he can start getting comfortable more off the ball. I didn't think we were going to see that either, but he's starting to look more comfortable in that role. So, encouraging sign that he's maybe starting to turn things.
Definitely better. Definitely a step in the right direction. I thought he gave up some plays, too, in this game. The 32-yarder on the opening drive was a little bit him. He gave up a 24-yard catch in coverage, but he also made some more splash plays this week, so you take that.
He shouldn't be in coverage. Like, I just don't necessarily fault him for that because he's not a player that should be in coverage.
Yeah, I don't blame him for it that much either. My next one, you're not going to believe this. I went with special teams. Marcus Jones. I thought Marcus Jones, his 40-yard return and his 25-yard return both set up scoring drives for the Patriots. Without that 25-yard return at the end of regulation that got them to the 50-yard line and started that drive in plus field position, I don't know if they score on that drive.
Talk about, in a game that had its share of dumb coaching decisions, punting the ball to Marcus Jones right there. It's not quite Matt Dodge, Deshaun Jackson, Miracle at the MetLife, but there's some similarities.
Yeah.
What the hell was Brian Callahan thinking?
Yeah, no, it was he was impactful on returns in this game, and he's a weapon. He's a weapon. He's on the list right now for me. Not a ton of guys that really deserve Pro Bowl sort of recognition or potential. But right now, I know Khalif Raymond's having a huge return season for Detroit. But if Marcus Jones mixes in a return touchdown here at some point, I think he has a really good chance of being a Pro Bowl returner.
Yeah.
All right, who's you got? You got one more? No, you only did 2,
That's
right?
it for ups, yep.
All right, honorable mention for me. I wouldn't say fully up just because it's hard to put anybody in the run defense fully up. I thought Anthony Jennings was good in this game. 5 stuffs, 4 hurries. I mean, that's really big production. I think he's doing his job on the defense and in the run game specifically. Doesn't really seem like the runs that are to his side, he's getting like crack blocked and things like that. Not necessarily his fault. So I would say that he's one of the few guys that is pulling his weight on the defensive side of the ball. All right, let's go to the downs because there were certainly a lot of choices.
Yeah, I mean, we already did 2 of these off the top, so
Yeah.
I'll just the coaching, whether it be there's one thing we didn't cover. So we talked about the end of the half.
Yep.
We talked about the wind thing. We talked about changing the offensive line, which I had Layden Robinson as a down. He just got bullied out of that game. Where'd you stand on the not going for 2 at the end of regulation?
Yeah, it's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. I hear both sides of it. For what it's worth, the Nerds supported their decision to kick.
I could not believe that.
They actually did it. They said to kick it for Tampa.
Tampa too.
Yeah.
I'm being dead serious when I say this. I always thought the little graphic that comes up that says go or kick.
Yeah.
I always thought they were making up the number because I had never seen that graphic say kick before in my life. I had never seen that until that game. I was shocked. I always thought they only had one version of the graphic that said go because they were trying to further the analytics agenda. I didn't even know a kick version of that graphic existed.
Yeah, so they said it was close. It was like 3 percentage points, but it definitely favored kick. And my guess is that was a big part of the decision making. I know that irks you probably and irks a lot of people that they're analytically minded.
If they arrive at the right decision, they arrive at the right decision. Well, no, the analytics people can't get mad if blindly following the math is the answer and the math goes against what they want. Because a lot of the analytics people don't want analytics. They're just impatient and go for 2. I want to see go for 2. Well, overtime, no, you have the ball right now. Like, no. They're just, I think a lot of the analytics community is just impatient and they don't like hard-nosed football that involves, establishing the run, multiple plays, whatever. But
is this because they're nerds? Is that what you're saying?
Sure. I don't really get that. But, I actually went back and looked because regardless of whether to go for it or not, and there's a fair football conversation to be had here. Math aside, I do understand the argument to go for 2. I think it's a flavor thing. I won't say somebody's wrong if they say they should go for 2. I would kick it, but it's a real good legitimate football debate. What I would say is the amount of, and this goes to the Tampa game too, the amount of people surprised that the Patriots didn't go for 2. That was surprising to me.
Yeah.
That, if you're saying, well, what do you mean you don't go for 2? What are you talking about? I went back and looked. The idea that it's like some given in the NFL that you go for 2 there is not the case. And it never has been. It's a college football thing. So all the people that tell me college football is too amateur and then come at me and say you should go for 2 there. Well, there's 120-something teams that are doing that, especially if you're on the road. I went back to 2015 because that's when they moved the PAT back.
Yeah.
There have been 7 instances, but before the Patriots, 6 instances where a team scored a touchdown in the final 10 seconds of the game to make it a 1-point game pending the extra point. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
Of those 6 teams, 4 kicked the extra point.
Okay.
Now, 3 of the 4 lost in overtime.
Yeah.
So maybe you look at that and whatever.
We'll change our minds now.
One team got the 2 that went for it, the other one didn't. Now there's
one of them was Baltimore, right, against Kansas City. I think
it was the Chargers against Kansas City. There's a Kansas City in there. I remember that.
That was Baltimore.
And the Chargers. The point. These are all different teams with different circumstances. This is why I hate the math.
Yeah.
That shouldn't inform what the Patriots did. But what it does inform is saying, well, everybody goes for 2 there. They don't.
Yeah.
They really don't.
So my feeling on the go for 2 thing is if they had scored the touchdown on a conventional play, not a 11.75 second ridiculous circus play. Like if they had scored on a conventional play, then I would have felt more inclined to go for 2, not because of the fatigue factor as much, but I just would have felt if I was Drake Maye, I would have felt a little bit more confident in actually getting the 2 points, right? You know what I mean? Like, okay, we just ran a play it just worked to perfection. And he hit the back of his foot and hit Hunter Henry wide open walking into the end zone on the touchdown. Like, we can do this. We have this down. Asking to go for 2 there, I think, is asking a lot of Drake Maye, because now he's got to go back out there and probably do the same exact thing that he just did. Right?
Well, and that's why, I always say, you've heard me say this, Evan, when it comes to go or not go, and this is why I can't stand the math, the decision to go for it or not is only as good as the play you call.
Yeah, like if I had confidence, I agree with you on that mostly, but like even more now, like if I had confidence that they had some like cheeky 2-point conversion play that was actually gonna take everybody by surprise, like not anything too like crazy, but not like a trick play.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, something like a RPO that we were just talking about, or a rollout play, or something that was actually like, oh wow, like they've practiced that clearly 100 times and like have it down. Then I would have been impressed. I don't know if I was really expecting that, right? Like I wasn't.
No,
really
that's the thing.
expecting that.
If they're looking at it, and look, it brings up a different issue. You should go into every game with 3 or 4 2-point plays you feel good about, but they struggled to get the 1 yard earlier in the game. They were struggling to get in.
Like they can't run the ball.
Right, they were struggling to get in from the 5 earlier. It's like,
even
if you're like, going for 2 here makes a ton of sense, but we don't have a play that we think can pick it up. Well, then what? You're just going to lose the game out of pride in the overall decision?
Yeah.
Like, the decision to go, I don't care about the math. I care about what is your play. How good do you feel about the play you are calling? And I understand if they didn't feel good about the play in that situation.
All right. What's your because we both had coaching as a down.
Yeah.
So what's your next one?
Jonathan Jones. He I don't know if I know he's dealing with injuries or age or whatever. Like, they were picking on him in this game, and he was struggling to stay with
receivers. Seems like
receivers.
he's a step slow these days.
Yeah.
And look, the touchdown pass that he gave up to Westbrook and Kinney is a tough route to cover, circus route in the red zone, and
it's also a guy that's much bigger than him.
Yeah, and he has the whole side of the field to get open, right? Like that's a tough route to cover for anybody, but it does feel like the Houston game, this game, like Jonathan Jones getting picked on a little bit. I think I texted you this during the game, actually, about moving him to safety.
I think it was after, but yeah.
Not this season. It's probably not the best time.
I might do it this season because their safety play's not great either.
Yeah, it's one of those things where usually when a player starts to lose a step and can't run with receivers anymore at corner, the conventional wisdom is to then move them to safety.
You can have a second career at safety where it's all in front of you.
Yeah, I think it's a potential move for him.
Yeah.
All right. So you had Jonathan Jones.
Yeah.
So I had Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
As my number 2 down. I thought Layden Robinson, honorable mention in this as well, but he didn't play as much, and it's not his fault that he was playing.
Well, so let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you think – so they make the change on the interior, right? And Ben Brown also had his worst game of the year. And I know he'd been struggling the last couple weeks, but this was such a drop-off. And I want to add one honorable mention to the ups.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Simmons, one of the most underrated players in the league.
Yeah.
Dude is a stud.
Yeah, I'll get to that in a second.
But the point being, do you think that it is related that they made a change on the interior when the interior had been working and other guys on the interior started to struggle in addition to Layden Robinson?
I will allow for the fact that might be a factor in all of this, but I would also say that Michael Jordan, just to stick with him for a second, his film has been on a decline for about a month now, I would say. And all this moving around that they're going to do on the offensive line potentially for Sunday that I know is going to take a lot of heat, and I agree with some of it to an extent. But at this point, it definitely does feel like Michael Jordan is teetering on unplayable for them on the offensive line. And I certainly understand that Michael Jordan is not a part of their future on the offensive line. So getting a guy like Layden Robinson or even Sidy So, who they hate apparently, getting one of those two guys in there.
Not one of those two guys, Sidy So.
Getting one of those two guys in there to try to develop a younger player when the guy you have, the veteran that you have starting, isn't playing well anyways, does make a lot of sense. Now, the way they're going to get to that by moving Onwenu to left guard and starting Robinson, maybe that doesn't make much sense. But the idea of, well, if this guy's not going to play well anyways, then let's just hand it to the kids, that, in theory, I think I can get behind.
Do you think there's a chance they are holding out and saying, we'll make the change when Cole Strange comes back?
I do like that idea. And I do think at this point, I know a lot of people have had conversations about Cole Strange playing center. I definitely think at this point that he's more needed at left guard than he is at center. Now, Ben Brown was rough in this game too, but I thought Ben Brown was fine for what he is. Now, my bigger complaint or problem with this whole thing, and just to have the numbers for you, I had Michael Jordan with 5 quarterback pressures allowed in this game. The bigger problem that I had with this game, and this goes back, years and years with Belichick in the past. Like there's certain guys we talk about it all the time. Not to talk about Bill. We talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
Tuesday players.
Right.
Who's the Tuesday players on the opponent? You get into the game plan meeting. You get the coaches together. You say, who's the one guy on defense for the Tennessee Titans or the 2 guys on defense for the Tennessee Titans that we cannot allow wreck this game? That we can't let it happen.
It's Jeffrey Simmons, but the way Gerard talked about it after the game, talking about making the lineup switch. It's like it took him by
surprise.
Right. Who was the first player Gerard Mayo brought up on Wednesday when he broke down the Titans?
Jeffrey Simmons. So when you come into this game, it's not even like lineup is number one. We've already gotten over that, right? We've already gone over that, I should say. The lineup is a big part of it. But I would also just say the pass protection plan is a big part of it as well. Like, there's no reason. T'Vondre Sweat's a decent player against the run. He's excellent, but he's not a pass rusher. So there's really no reason that Jeffrey Simmons should have ever been one-on-one in this game.
No.
Like, you slide the line to Jeffrey Simmons. It's very easy to do. The center is the midpoint of the offensive line. You half slide one way, you man-to-man the other side, right? So you have 3 guys sliding, and you have 2 guys man-to-man on the other side. Usually you slide towards the play, the way you're running the play, right? The first read and the progression. But you can mess with it. And you slide the protection. So the entire game, Ben Brown should have been opening to Jeffrey Simmons, his side of the line.
Right.
And then you have 2 guys on him the entire game. Like, that's the way that it should have been. The fact that it wasn't is just bad coaching. Like, it's just bad coaching. So I had Michael Jordan. I had, you could put Ben Brown in this conversation. You can put Layden Robinson in this conversation. But to end this whole rant, the interior offensive line by the Patriots got their ass whooped in this game. And that is not just on them. It's also just on the coaching as well. So you have to do a better job in general. But I understand why they're going to take Michael Jordan out of the lineup, because he hasn't been very good.
Yeah, again, I think there's a better way to do it, but I'm with you. Last one, Bryce Behringer.
Oh, no, your boy.
I mean, he had a couple shanks. Like, you can't have that.
He had a big shank late.
He had
right?
a really, So,
yeah.
there's no, I don't know how much more to editorialize that. The guy was one of the best punters in the league to start the season. He's cooled off a little bit, outkicked his coverage in Jacksonville, shanked a couple punts this week. Got to get back on track.
Is this this isn't a Jake Bailey did too many squats scenario?
Hope not.
Yeah.
I hope not.
It was squats, right?
Was it squats? I don't know.
I think it was like the hair's back.
Something like that, yeah.
Squats. My last down, and I've said this before, so I'm sorry for people that listen to all of our shows, and I'm repeating myself a little bit. But every single Monday, Film Monday, one of my favorite days of the week, I get to sit down. I get to watch the film. You
loving Mondays is so on brand.
Yeah, I get to watch the film. It's great. I sit with my laptop for like 12 straight hours and watch film, and it's my favorite day of the week. I have started to dread watching the Patriots defense. I've started to dread it because their run defense is so tough to watch. It is so difficult to watch. Like, it, from alignment to fits to getting off blocks, fundamentals, pad level, eye discipline, IDing rushes, like all of it is just really tough to watch. So I'll give you one example. I could give you a billion. Obviously in overtime, they're blown off the line of scrimmage. Like, this wasn't anything creative in overtime. It was just like against Jacksonville and London. We're coming at you. You can't stop us. That's what we're doing, right? Like, it's just, that right there is it sucks the soul right out of you, right? Like that. Yeah. The fact that you can't just line up and stop somebody in the run game is just really difficult to watch. But the 32-yarder by Tony Pollard on the opening drive of this game for the Titans, which they scored a touchdown on, they ran a front that I haven't seen them run a ton, where they have a 4 technique, so a defensive end straight up over the tackle, right? He's lined up right over the left tackles, Jeremiah Farms. There's nobody outside Jeremiah Farms. Like, there's no edge defender. There's no outside linebacker standing up. There's no Anthony Jennings over there. There's nobody. So what do the Titans do? They just motion a tight end into the formation, and they crack block Jeremiah Farms, and they get the easiest edge of all time. Like, it's just easiest edge ever. And they get the DBs in the fit, and now we're just running downhill at 200, 190-pound defensive backs, right? Like, it's just, that to me is not necessarily, DeMarcus Covington said today that the DBs need to do a better job in the run game. You should help out the DBs, right? Like, why is there not an edge defender there to set the edge of the defense? Like, having a hand in the dirt defensive lineman inside the tackle be your furthest player out on the line of scrimmage on that side of the ball just doesn't make logical sense. And I watch their run defense, and there's just times where I'm like, who is in this gap? Like, who's assigned to this gap? Like, there's nobody in the gap. So is that on the players that they're not getting aligned correctly on the field? Is that on the coaches for the fronts they're running or what they're coaching in terms of alignment? What I'm basically getting at is that this is not talent. This is details.
Yeah.
And all it takes is being sharper on these details and better with your fundamentals, and their run defense will get better. It doesn't matter that they don't have Vince Wilfork or a Jawan Bentley or whichever player from the Patriots past that you want to point at that it was a good run defender. They have enough guys that can stop the run. Devon Godshaw is a really good nose tackle. Anthony Jennings is a really good edge setter. They need to deploy these guys better than what they're doing, or they need to get the players on the same page and to buy into what they're doing. Way too many blown fits, blown gaps, poor assignment sound football, and poor formation on the defensive side of the ball. It's a painful watch to watch their run defense right now. It's not NFL standard, and it's taking away from my Mondays, Alex. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been good. Plain and simple.
All right. We're going to take your calls here in a second, I promise. But before we do, Massachusetts is made for everyone. For leaf peepers, corn maze strollers, regatta lovers, pumpkin pickers, and anyone else you can think of. Come to where there's something for everyone this fall. Massachusetts, where everything is made possible. Plan your trip at visitma.com. All right, let's get to the phones. I know you guys have been waiting, so I appreciate it. We appreciate it. Sam is in Connecticut. What's up, Sam?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, go for it, Sam.
All right, awesome. I had one question that I wanted to ask you guys. You guys went into it a little bit, but I just wanted to ask about the run game in general. What do you think the main issue is with the run game? Is it mostly on scheming? I know you guys were talking about that a lot earlier. Has it been at all on the players? I don't know how Gibson's really been doing individually. I know Stevenson, at the beginning of the year was breaking a lot of tackles. And I wanted to figure out if it was those two things or a big part of it was offensive line rush blocking and if that kind of took a decline. And I kind of wanted to know, why you guys think that fell off so much since the beginning of the season. If it was maybe, difference with Drake Maye playing at quarterback, if defenses are kind of treating it differently. I just love to hear you guys talk about it.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Sam. Absolutely, it's a good question. So a couple of things that I see with their run game, and then Alex, obviously give your thoughts. I think the number one thing to me is, and we've been saying this going back to the Patricia years, like they just don't have the offensive linemen to block an outside zone system. Like I just don't believe that they, from a personnel standpoint, have the right people to block it. And I know Onwenu kind of gets used as like the perfect example because he's a 340-pound guy. But I would just say across the board, they don't have the athletes for it. So outside zone, Utah, you look at teams that run that kind of system. They have a lot of, I guess just to use a Patriot, like they have a bunch of Cole Stranges, right? Like they have a bunch of athletes. They have a bunch of lean, very athletic interior players, especially that can horizontally move at that 90-degree angle and reach blocks on the line of scrimmage. So a lot of outside zone is that you're going to, if you're going to the left side, you're going to have a guy right in your gap on your outside hip, and you have to reach that player, and you have to turn him out of that gap. And that takes a lot of athleticism and a lot of explosiveness out of your stance. So if they want to be that kind of team and they truly want to commit to being an outside zone run team, which I do think they do, because that's what Drake Maye said when he was hired, that he kind of infatuated by that system, by the Shanahan tree, then you need to draft for that system. Like, you need to go out and draft linemen that fit the mold of that system. I don't necessarily think Caden Wallace or Layden Robinson are outside zone offensive linemen. So I would say, on the one hand, I definitely will continue to harp and pound the table for them to just go downhill at people again. Like, run some gap schemes, guys. Like, run some duo, run some lead, run some power, and just downhill right at them. Like, take Onwenu, take Robinson, take these big guys and get them moving off the line of scrimmage. Right now, the push that they're generating is not good enough, and I don't think it's totally on them. I think a lot of it is scheme.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I also think, and maybe they're going away from this, and we talked about maybe Layden Robinson went in last week because they wanted a guy who was primarily a run blocker.
Yeah.
With Drake Maye coming in, they're putting more emphasis, or they're putting more attention on getting players in who are better pass blockers. And they just don't have a ton of guys who are solid in both regards right now.
Yeah.
They don't. Even when it comes to moving a guy like Mike Onwenu from right guard to right tackle, that's a move you make in regards to the run game. You're not making that to do a better job protecting the quarterback. So how much can you do about that right now? I mean, you can keep Mike Onwenu at right guard. That's one way to help it. But some of it, to me, not a personnel thing in the sense, well, it is, I guess, a personnel thing in the sense of who they have available, but I think because of who they have available, the coaching staff at times has to choose. Do we want guys who are better pass blockers or better run blockers? Because there are going to be guys that have significant weaknesses at one or the other. And with Drake Maye in, the emphasis is on protecting the quarterback.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. I just say the other thing, quickly, they're running a lot of plays to the weak side of the formation. So away.
Yeah, what's up with that?
So away from where
that.
the tight ends even sometimes the jumbo tight end, like the tackle eligible. I don't know what's up with it. The one thing that typically lends itself when you do that is that you're one-on-one on the backside. So you technically have the numbers to that side of the field because the defense is going to tilt over to the side that the tight end is on. So you should have a numbers advantage running there. But the problem is that everybody's on their own, right? Like it's one-on-ones across the board.
Right.
So, last week we talked a lot about that goal line run that won the game against the Jets. Like, in that instance, you have the pullers, so you have what they call fixers, right? The guys that, if the guys on the line of scrimmage blow their block, you have like a second wave almost of blockers that can then make them right and fix the problem. When you're running weak side and you don't have fixers, you don't have pullers coming from the other side of the field, then those guys, if they blow their block, that's it. The run's over.
Right.
And that's what I'm seeing a lot of on film. Like, they, early on in this game, they made City So eligible a couple times. They ran lead with the fullback being City So in the backfield, and Ramondre Stevenson didn't run behind City So. He ran the other way. So that, to me, it doesn't add up to me. Like, that I watched that play and similar to watching the run defense, I'm like, that doesn't look right. Like, you have the whole run set up to run behind City So, but then Drake Maye and Ramondre Stevenson he's going left. And both the quarterback and the running back are on the same page about which way he's going. So it wasn't like there was like some weird exchange or snafu back there. To me, they pointed the run in the wrong direction. I don't know if that's just as simple as a screw up or if there was something more at play there, a philosophical thing. But I just don't care for it, Alex. I don't like, why put a 300-pound lineman at fullback and then not run behind him.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back. They did this in the Seattle game. Remember where they ran the unbalanced line?
Yeah.
They had Hunter Henry at left tackle, and they ran behind Hunter Henry at left tackle. Like, this is it's not the first time they've tried something like they've tried that a couple times this year, and I don't know.
Yeah, fullback's great. Fullback helps so much to me in the run game.
If they're going to keep running this offense, do you want to see him? Because I've gotten this question a lot. Do you want to see him add a true fullback and incorporate it next year?
I don't want them to keep running this offense, but if they insist on running
or
this
even
offense,
a more developed version of this offense. Basically, if Van Pelt's back next year, even if they add in some of the pistol stuff and some of the design quarterback run stuff, do you think that there's room to incorporate a fullback into a version of this offense?
Yeah, absolutely. But in order to do that, this is not a James Devlin, Jakob Johnson.
No, it's
fullback.
it's
Juszczyk. Like
who was the guy they had from the Packers? Ironically, not Dalton Keene.
Oh,
they had him and he opted out the COVID year and then he retired.
Yeah. They need a more athletic fullback because he's going to have to block out on the perimeter.
And somebody just a little bigger than Jaheim Bell. I don't think Jaheim Bell is quite.
I think Jaheim Bell has potential to be that guy, though. Like, I wouldn't mind at least trying to see if he could do it, honestly. I think he has a chance to.
Danny Vitale. That's
Danny Vitale. Yes, I remember Danny Vitale. I thought Danny Vitale was going to be a thing for a second.
He was. They signed him to be a thing, but it was the COVID year and he opted out and then he retired.
How much?
I think they even extended him. They signed him for a 1-year deal.
How much podcast time do you think you and I wasted talking about Danny Vitale? At least
we weren't doing a podcast that year. That was the 1 year we weren't doing it.
Yeah, that's true.
We would have done a lot.
At least 30 minutes.
It was a cosmic happening that was the 1 year we weren't doing a podcast.
And we didn't get to talk about Danny Vitale together. That's a bummer.
We didn't get to do Danny Vitale. Who else did we miss that year?
Probably a lot, but Danny Vitale.
We did Cam because he was still here to 2021.
Yeah.
We never got to talk Demir Bird. Underrated player.
Underrated player.
I mean that. Underrated player.
Put some respect on Demir Bird's name.
I mean, they replaced him with Nelson.
Steve has been waiting for an hour and 7 minutes.
They replaced him with Nelson Aguilar, and they both had equal production last year.
No, Demir Bird could fly. Yeah. All right, Steve is in New Jersey. What's up, Steve? Steve, are you there?
That's my fault. I talked too much about Demir Bird.
Stevie. All right, Steve, call us back if you're still there. All right, Todd is in North Carolina. What's up, Todd?
So before you got on PU, Evan, and just after you left yesterday, I talked to John a little bit, and John felt that AVP was brilliant and that he's being kind of held back. He's not allowed to be creative. He's not allowed to do as much. And then in the chat today for PU, there's a guy who gave us a quote from Mayo on WEI saying that, he's in the headset, he's making the calls for the offense, and that's how it works. So he's actually doing offense. And I don't like the sound of that. And then I was thinking about that. You combine that with May talking about how proud he is of all the audibles he's had to make. And I'm beginning to wonder, just who is coaching what and who's doing what. And it's starting to make me a little concerned. What do you guys think about the coaching? And is AVP brilliant and being held back? I'll take it off air. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Todd. I don't think Gerard Mayo is coaching or super involved in the offense. I don't think I don't get that impression.
I don't think so either.
Now, being on the headset, obviously every head coach is on the headset and is in the, sometimes maybe he wants to explain how they want to handle a certain situation to Alex Van Pelt. You mentioned the situation before halftime against the Jets. Let's just run it out here.
Right, let's sit on it.
Yeah, right, that sort of thing. So I think that's definitely possible, but I don't think Gerard Mayo is getting in there and calling plays. He
shouldn't be.
Being in Drake Maye's ear, he's not. Now, do I think Alex Van Pelt's being held back? No. I think this is Alex Van Pelt's offense. I think this is the offense they've run in Cleveland. I think this is the offense he ran in Green Bay with Mike McCarthy. It's the offense that Mike McCarthy is running in Dallas with the Cowboys right now. This is the offense. I don't think that there's some secret sauce that's being missed from this offense.
I think there's to an extent of him being held back by the personnel, and I think he even talked about this, that the execution is limiting some of the things they can do, but in that sense, he might be being held back.
Yeah, no, I just don't think that from a creative sense, I don't think that he's this wizard that we're missing out on. I wish he was. I wish that was the case, because you would think by, 4 or 5 starts in with Drake Maye, maybe you would start to see some of that.
Well, I think this is the week, you have the concussion in the middle there, which maybe throws a wrench into that. This is the week where that element of it should start ramping up.
Yeah. All right. I do want to talk a little bit of Bears. Marine, we
actually did a pretty solid Bears preview, more of a preview than we usually do. We were talking Bears early in the show. I'm not saying we can't. I'm just saying.
No, I want to talk a little bit about Caleb. But I also want to get the emails up. And Marine, the email is not logged in. If you can come help me with that. Thank you. I want to talk a little bit about Caleb because, look, it's a conversation, and I like hand up. I'm not going to change my mind or act like I didn't feel this way during the draft. I had Caleb as the number 1 quarterback in the draft. I had him as the slam dunk number 1 pick. I would have taken him number 1 overall if I was Ryan Pace and Matt Eberflus and the Chicago Bears. So I don't fault them for anything that they did. But now, in hindsight, with the benefit of it, Jaden Daniels has certainly outplayed Caleb Williams. That goes without saying. And I think there's a case, statistically, obviously, in a much smaller sample size, that Drake Maye has at least played just as well, if not better, than Caleb Williams as well, despite the fact that Caleb Williams has a great supporting cast on paper, or a much better one, at least in the Patriots. I mean, I remember coming into the season with Chicago, Alex, that people were saying that this might be the best setup a number 1 pick has ever had in Chicago with Caleb. So what are your thoughts so far on Caleb and what he's done? Because I've been a little underwhelmed. I'm not going to lie. I'm not coming on here and trying to, bash him to make Drake look better, I promise. But I just have been a little bit underwhelmed.
I mean, he's been inconsistent, I think would be the best way to put it. He's had some games where he's looked unbelievable, but it was really like a 4-game stretch there in the middle of the year. He didn't start the season strong. He hasn't been good the last 2 weeks since the bye. He's thrown 9 touchdowns, but they've come in 4 total games.
Yeah.
And on one hand, for a young quarterback, consistency is one of the tough things. But this is like to an extreme, especially when you factor in the talent he has around him. And I think we talked about this when he was at USC. Was he going to be able to 3-step drop, get the ball out?
Yeah.
Right? For the concerns we talk about with Drake Maye and his inability to play in structure, a lot of that's there with Caleb too. And the offense Shane Waldron is calling, for whatever reason, is like incredibly structure-based. I think you could argue it's more structure-based than what the Patriots are calling for Maye, or at the very least, Williams is more adhering to the structure. He's less willing to break the structure.
Yeah.
And so he's fighting himself. And something's got to give. And I know people in Chicago are not happy with Shane Waldron, and I get that.
Yeah.
Whether that's him, whether it's Williams, like, it's just the flashes are there, but I think they just have him fighting himself too much.
Yeah, so I think it's funny with Shane Waldron because when I watch the Bears offense right now and their system, I see a lot of the same things that the Patriots run conceptually, offensively. They run a West Coast offense just like the Patriots. Waldron is a McVay guy, came from the Rams, the Seahawks via the Rams, but followed Sean McVay from Washington when McVay was the OC there to Los Angeles, right? So this is a true McVay guy, but Waldron, at least to this point, and he did a little bit more in Seattle, so maybe this is a rookie quarterback thing more than anything, but they don't motion much. They don't do much in terms of their pre-snap to alter the defense or affect the defense, just like the Patriots, and I see a lot of the same sort of rudimentary route concepts, right? Like we're going to run a high-low over here, or we're going to run stick over there, or we're going to run all curls here on 3rd down, or whatever. Like it's all just kind of stuff that, frankly, people have been running since like high school, right? And I think that there's a lot of that. I think their spacing and the way that they set up the reads for Caleb has put a lot of pause into his decision making and has caused problems for them as well. So I put a lot of it on the design of the offense and the offensive coordinator. With that being said, I agree with everything that you said about this was the question mark coming into his career with Caleb was he going to be able to operate on time, in rhythm, in structure? Like we know that he can do all the great stuff when the play breaks down, but was he going to be able to play conventional quarterback at a high enough level to make it worth it, right? To make this all go. And so far, I would say he's struggled with that a little bit, throwing on time, throwing accurately with timing and rhythm and anticipation down the field. A lot of the time when you see quarterbacks miss throws, it's not because they can't control the ball. It's because they're not anticipating or their timing is off. So they're throwing late or they're throwing early. And now all of a sudden a ball that actually would have been perfectly fine looks like it's a bad throw. So I see a lot of that with Caleb as well. But if you're the Bears, and I know this is already happening, there's a lot of Justin Fields PTSD, just like we have some Mac Jones PTSD here. So a lot of the issues when you talk about, reading the field, anticipation, like that type of stuff, a lot of that was the knocks on Justin Fields. So this sounds familiar for Chicago fans, and they also hate their coordinator. So all of this sounds a lot the same as some of the things that we've dealt with here over the last couple of years with Chicago. What do you think, though, you're still in on Caleb? And, what do you expect to see out of him on Sunday?
I mean, he still has a ton of talent. I'm expecting him to make some plays. But I think, again, they're not allowing him to go fully into his bag, and I wouldn't be surprised if this game turns into a little bit of a slog. There might be flashes here and there, but I'm not expecting like 300 yards or 3 touchdowns or anything like that.
Yeah.
So,
really, his best games have been in London against Jacksonville, which is not a very good team, as we know. So,
starting Mac Jones this week. That's the word on the street.
That is the word on the street. I might actually watch that on tape just to see what it looks like.
I'm curious.
Yeah,
I'm curious. He had a good preseason.
We could do a Mac Jones minute next week, maybe if I have time to watch it.
I think we should.
Yeah, I'll see if I have time. But
what if he's good? What if he's really good? Then I think we have to.
Really good. I think he could be serviceable. We always thought
No,
that.
I mean in this one game. What if he's really good? I think we have to do a Mac Jones minute. They played the Eagles last week. It's the Vikings. So it's Brian Flores.
He's not going to be really good.
Brian Flores.
He's not going to be really good.
No. I think Peterson totally dumped on Sam Darnold today too.
Yikes. Peterson talks a lot.
He has his thoughts on quarterbacks. Hang on, I want to see if I can find the quote. Peterson or Peterson? P-E-T-E or P-E-D?
Doug Peterson?
Yeah.
It's with the D.
Okay.
Other thing on the Bears that I had a thought on as well.
Wait, hang on. Doug Peterson asked earlier why Sam Darnold has turned it around this year. Justin Jefferson.
I mean,
he's not wrong.
It's just a little rude.
But remember what he said about Mac and he's not New England anymore. He goes back to his Patriots ways. He's not afraid to just rip on quarterbacks.
That's not right. Anyways, other thing I had a thought on with the Bears is that what I was impressed with their process this offseason. And as we start to turn the page into the offseason, we'll obviously have a lot more conversations about this in the next 6 months or whatever. But they did all the right things to try to make this thing viable. Like if you're the Patriots, trading out of a top pick, let's say they get the number 1 pick like Chicago had a couple years ago, they trade out of it to Carolina. Carolina takes Bryce Young. That obviously hasn't worked out, but that's not the point I'm driving at. The picks that they got back for that trade were insane. Like they got 4 picks back and DJ Moore. So they've used those picks on Darnell Wright, Tyreek Stevenson, ironically. Now Caleb. Caleb was Carolina's pick, technically, number 1 overall last year. And then they still have Carolina's 2025 second as well. And then they traded one of the picks for Montez Sweat. And they traded a pick for Keenan Allen, right?
Yeah.
And they have all this surplus. So they did a nice job, I think, of rebuilding this roster. And I just look at it and think if Elliott Wolf can pull off something similar, maybe it's not quite the haul, because I don't know if teams are going to look at any of these quarterbacks like they looked at Bryce Young. But if he can pull off a similar trade down and then just kind of fan out those assets with trades and with draft picks, I think that this is a pretty good blueprint for the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, we've used the Texans a lot, but the Bears' path is certainly there for them. It's absolutely there for them.
Yeah, and I mean, look, the Bears are 4-4. They're not terrible. They're not as good as they want to be. The other couple of things I had on the Bears, and then I want to talk about their defense too. I think Keenan Allen might be kind of washed. It doesn't look great for him. DJ Moore, some weird attitude stuff going on with him.
Walked off the field mid-play last week.
Walking off the field, his body language on film is terrible. Remember we were talking about the receivers earlier on in the season with their body language, Polk and Pop Douglas. It's similar with DJ Moore, and I get it. Sometimes he's open and he's not getting the ball, and receivers are going to get frustrated by that. I've never seen a receiver walk off the field like that before, mid-play. I don't care if you got hurt. I just have never seen that before. That was crazy. His press conference this week was odd, weird, just talking about that situation and just kind of like making light of the fact that he just quit in the middle of a play, and then also kind of not really backing his head coach. Like, it was just a weird vibe out of him in the press conference. And Roma Dunze is a good young player, but I think his timing with Caleb is a problem right now. They're still trying to work out. And I haven't necessarily seen the explosive element to Roma Dunze's game yet. I think he's a really good receiver at the first two levels of the defense already, but I haven't necessarily seen a guy that's running by anybody or putting any fear into anybody down the field. So what I'm trying to get at with all of this is that the Bears' offense just looks dysfunctional. Like, they look kind of broken. Their tape last week was terrible. Their spacing, their execution, body language, like across the board. And this is a team that's 4-4 and 2 games out of a playoff spot. It's not like they're out of it. So that whole Bears operation offensively, they're 27th in the league in DVOA. They're just kind of look like a team that sort of quit on the coaching a little bit. I've been surprised to see how fast and quick that's fallen off the rails. You mentioned earlier in the show running the football maybe a little bit this week. This Bears run defense is horrid. It's very bad. They're 30th in DVOA against the run. They're very bad against schemes with pullers. So once again, I am demanding to see some downhill schemes, some gap schemes, pull some guards, and get downhill at this Bears defense. They are giving up 7 yards a carry. 7 against pulling concepts, right? Whether it's power, counter, G lead, whatever. 7 yards a carry is a huge number. So they are susceptible to that. The two guys that worry me on the Bears defense, obviously Montez Sweat, if he plays, is a problem out on the outside. Right. Tremaine Edmonds is a really good coverage linebacker, and he's one of those guys that is going to be hunting against a rookie quarterback, right, for a bad throw over the middle that he can maybe intercept. But what do you see about this Bears defense? Because I do think the Patriots might have some trouble passing the ball. It's a pretty good pass defense, but they struggle a lot against the run.
I'm with you. It's a get-right game for somebody on the ground.
Yeah.
It's a get-right game for somebody, really on both sides of the ball. But, yeah, this is a Bears team that hasn't done a good job against the run by any metric. They're 29th in the league, allowing 5 yards per carry, 5 even yards per carry. I feel like a broken record because I think we said this, obviously not last week, but I think we said it 2 weeks ago. Like, this is the Patriots' chance to start running the ball. But this really is the Patriots' chance to start running the ball. And that's what I'm looking at. Like, I don't know that Drake Maye needs to go out and have this massive game. Obviously, people want the quarterback duel between him and Caleb Williams, but I think just as much if the Patriots come out, run the ball well, and win off that, I think you feel good about it.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think this is a game that I would be disappointed if they can't run the ball at all in this game. They should be able to run the ball against the Bears. This is a scheme game to me as much as it is about a mentality thing with the run game. There's a way to run the ball against the Bears. There's a blueprint against the Bears of how to run the football. The Cardinals just did it last week with 213 yards on the ground. Like, just follow the blueprint. Don't overthink it. Don't get too fancy. Don't be running outside zone against a team that can't stop a power scheme, right? Like, run downhill at this team, pull some guards, get Ramondre Stevenson going, and then maybe Drake Maye only has to drop back to pass 30 times instead of 53, and we don't see as many turnovers and as many catastrophic plays. So that's the Bears. I'm really curious about how this goes for Caleb because so far it's been a little bit of what some people that were anti-Caleb were worried about. Yeah. They look right so far.
And this is going to be one where, like, if they lose for what the national view is of this Patriots team, there's going to be some big-time questions he's going to have to face. And this was my take on the leadership questions about Caleb Williams coming into the draft was, is he the best leader? Like, no, probably not. If he's winning games, I think he'll be fine. If he's losing games, it doesn't really matter what kind of leader he is because the team's losing. And this is where you're kind of getting to a precipice where regardless of how he's handling himself as a leader, is he going to start losing guys because the results aren't there on the field?
Yeah, it's a good point. And look, we said some similar things about the Jaguars with Doug Peterson, and obviously the Jaguars played for him in London in that game, and they won that game pretty handedly, and all that stuff sort of quiets down. But nobody's seat's hotter right now than Matt Eberflus. Like, Matt Eberflus is on a red-hot seat. They lose on a Hail Mary against Washington. That was an ugly, ugly sequence for coaching. You know, the 3 yards that they gave up on the play before the Hail Mary, the way they defended the Hail Mary. I obviously put most of it on Tyreek Stevenson.
Not having Tyreek Stevenson ready.
Yeah, being a knucklehead, but also at the same time, like, you know, that's coaching. Like, you need to have your team buttoned up in those big situations. And then they come out the following week against Arizona and get their doors blown off of them by the Cardinals, who are frisky. Like, the Cardinals have played well, especially lately. But still, you go in there and you basically have no offense, and you're 29-9, get blown out, can't stop the run, no offense. Sounds familiar. Like,
right.
Yeah, you know, those are bad football team boxes that they are checking. So I would say that if the Bears lose to the Patriots on Sunday, which I picked the Bears, so I don't think they will. But if the Patriots beat the Bears on Sunday, if Matt Eberflus gets fired Monday morning, I will not be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised either.
Yeah, I think it's either him or Shane Waldron's going. I don't know which one.
It might be Waldron. He might have the fall guy. It might be Waldron. But somebody, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody gets the axe for that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's open up to some of these, or read some of these emails, I should say. A couple of good ones. And if you want to join in the last 20 minutes here of the show, 855-PATS-500 is the phone number. And we'll just kind of let you guys take us here to the end at 4 o'clock. So make sure, feel free to call in and give us your take. But we have a lot of emails here, Alex, about all of our takes, you know, about the coaching and all that kind of stuff. Just asking us why we are not throwing more criticism at Elliott Wolf and about the front office. And look, I'll just put this out there. In season, I'm not really like too focused on the personnel train. Like, I get it, but like right now I'm in the weeds. Like, I'm in the trenches. I'm in the X's and O's. I'm on the film. Like, we love the off season. Like, we are an off season podcast, but the time right now is not about the roster. So that's sort of part of why I don't necessarily bring up Elliott Wolf a ton.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think I've said my piece plenty on the construction of this offensive line or lack thereof. Like, major miss. I assume that's because of the deadline. I know the emails because of the deadline. I know people were upset.
Yeah.
The big move was never there. It was just never there. Nothing that made sense. I will say I think it is a miss not moving one of KJ Osborne or Tyquan Thornton, if not both. I understand they want to get value for the player. KJ Osborne's not going to be here next year. Tyquan Thornton maybe because he has another year on his contract. You trade in the offseason, whatever. KJ Osborne's not going to be here for next year. A 6th-round pick isn't a lot, but it's something else you have to throw into a trade that you don't have if you let Osborne walk. Even a 7th-round pick swap, right? 7th becoming a 6th. You don't have that. They have a ton of 7th-round picks. They could have pick swapped or something. Not getting that deal done is a miss.
Yeah.
I don't know. Here we go. We did it. We did 5 minutes on them not getting that deal done. I don't know that we were going to open up the show. I don't know that we were going to do half an hour on them not trading KJ Osborne.
Right.
But to your point, I've said my piece on the construction of this roster. There were misses this offseason. There were significant misses this offseason in the draft as well, it's looking like. But we do that in January. We don't really do a ton of that in November because it's just – we'll get on the coaching staff in November. We talked about the win. We talked about changing the offensive line.
Yeah.
That's this time of year.
Yeah, my thing on Elliott Wolf, the one thing that I would give him right now is the grace of last offseason, him and Drake Maye was first on the job. And just being close to it a little bit, like obviously I don't want to overplay that. Like I'm not close to it, but you know what I'm trying to say. It was a whirlwind. Like it was a lot. Like you changed hands, right? You changed regimes. You let the greatest head coach of all time walks out the building. I don't think people realize just how much of a infrastructure Bill had built here over 20 plus years. I know that sounds like it should be obvious. And so a lot was going on. They had a really bad roster that they inherited. They had no quarterback. And they really had no culture or nothing to attract free agents with other than money. So I look at what they did in the offseason, and I say if they came out of that offseason last year with Drake Maye as a franchise quarterback, then I'm not saying that I'm giving them an A, but I'm giving them a passing grade. Right? Like I give them a C- at the bare minimum.
So I said on the night they took May, I said they had a good draft. By drafting Drake Maye, they had a good draft. The rest of the rounds 2 through 7 will decide if it's a good draft or great draft, and we're not at great.
No.
We're certainly not at great, but they had a good draft taking Drake Maye.
Right.
There was all the temptation to trade down. Do you move down for J.J. McCarthy? Do you take a tackle or receiver? I know it's, he made the obvious decision. He did and he didn't.
Yeah.
He did. A lot of the people saying that are the same people who wanted them to take J.J. McCarthy. So
I feel really good about that pick. I think we all do. And they went through free agency. And if you want to blame Elliott Wolf for this, then fine. Like, I'm not going to tell you how to think. But they went through free agency, and they tried to throw a bag of money at Calvin Ridley. And Calvin Ridley just didn't want to come here. They couldn't attract him to come here. He picked the Titans over the Patriots, but really just talking to some of the Tennessee people last week in the lead up to that game, they felt like it was never the Patriots versus the Titans. It was really the Titans versus the Jaguars, right, going back to Jacksonville. Like, the Patriots were kind of the third team in that entire thing. So they couldn't get Calvin Ridley. They couldn't lure Calvin Ridley here. So if you want to criticize Elliott Wolf for not being a better closer in terms of that deal, then I guess I can hear that. But the top of the market free agents were not interested in signing with the Patriots. They couldn't get those guys to take their money. Like, they just couldn't. So that was a big piece of it. And then in the draft is where I really have my second guesses. But what I'm getting at is next offseason, and I understand that there's not a lot of faith in Elliott Wolf running the show next offseason for some people. But next offseason to me is the offseason where I need to see multiple blue chip caliber players added to this roster.
Agree.
You don't have a quarterback. Like, you don't need a quarterback, excuse me, is what I meant to say.
Right, that's not on the list.
It's not on the list. And so now when you have your first round draft pick, you're going to be taking a position player. You're not going to be taking a quarterback,
right? Which
is huge. And this is maybe another piece of it too for me, is you and I are as big of draft nerds as you'll find in this market. I think I'm comfortable with saying that we are two of the guys
that don't even watch college football,
that nerd out more about the draft. I watch it when the time comes. That nerd out about the draft more than just about anybody. It is incredibly hard to build your team on day 2 and day 3 picks. So when you take the day 1 pick out, because that has to go to the quarterback, and what we're really talking about is Caden Wallace and Layden Robinson and Marcellus Dial.
Especially when you miss runs at key positions.
Yeah, Jaheim Bell. Like, we're talking about guys.
Jalen Polk, Javon Baker.
Yeah, Javon Baker. Jalen Polk is the one that I will not give them.
You said day 2 and 3.
I know, but
what do you mean not give them? What do you mean?
I guess I should have rephrased from day 2 and 3. You're right. I did phrase it that way. Outside of the top 50.
All right.
Anything outside of the top 50 to me is you're playing darts.
Yeah.
You're throwing darts.
You want to hit on 1 or 2 of those guys, ideally.
Yeah, and when you say hit, it's that they can play in the NFL. It's not that those guys are star players for you on your team. It's that you hit on a guy, in the 3rd round that can competently play the position you drafted him to play. That's a different conversation than what the Patriots need. The Patriots need frontline, blue chip, top of the roster talent. So they're not talking about guys that just fill in the roster, right? So I give them that grace because this offseason, they're going to have $100 million in cap space. I gave them 1 offseason for the excuse that nobody wants to come here. I don't give you 2, right?
Well, now that they've seen Drake Maye, the hope is that come play with this kid. Yeah.
Close the deal. And
send Drake Maye. Remember when they sent Tom Brady and Kelly Olynyk to try to send Kevin Durant?
Yeah.
To sign Kevin Durant. Where's that, on the Cape, on the Vineyard?
It was actually the Hamptons.
The Hamptons, whatever. Get Drake Maye and throw Jason Tatum on the. Well, no, it'll be April. He'll be playing.
Yeah,
but maybe they have an off day. Throw Jason Tatum on the plane out there to go get your receiver.
Yeah. So that's I gave him 1 off season with that, right? You really don't have an identity, you don't have a culture, nobody knows what's going on here. It's a tough situation to walk into as a free agent with options like Calvin Ridley. Like, picking the Patriots in that spot was always a little bit unrealistic. So I gave him that for 1 year. Next offseason, I don't give him that. And with the draft right now, and it's early, and I know everybody's kind of has this take right now that the draft stinks outside of Drake Maye, but calling for what it is, it doesn't look like a great draft
Not
outside
really
of
getting
Drake
anything,
Maye. And the pick that I really hold against them a lot is Jalen Polk. And again, just like with Caleb, this isn't revisionist history. I wrote it at the time. I wasn't the biggest fan of Jalen Polk's coming into this draft. I'm not saying I thought that he stunk or couldn't play. I definitely didn't see this. Like, I thought that he was going to be, like everybody else kind of did, like a steady Jacoby Myers, Tyler Boyd, maybe, type of player. Like, I thought that was sort of where he was going to fit into an NFL hierarchy, probably like a solid to low end number 2 receiver, right? And that's good. The Patriots needed somebody like that. I think they still need somebody like that. But my concerns with him are all the concerns that we're seeing on the field, which is separation ability, dynamic route running ability, the reliance on contested catches or catches in traffic and finishing through contact. It's one thing to finish through contact and make all those contested catches playing at the college level. This level, the physicality is much more significant. And maybe it's just an adjustment that he has to go through. But that skill was always going to make or break his NFL career.
Yeah.
Whether he could finish through contact at this level or not was always going to determine his success or failure in the NFL. And so far, he hasn't been able to. So right now, that pick is looking trending towards the wrong direction. I hate using the word bust this early on in a player's career, but it's not trending in a great direction.
Well, I also think when you look at, and there was reporting at the time that they were considering moving into the back end of the first round, and whether that be for a receiver like Xavier Legette or maybe a tackle, what would that have cost? Probably 35th pick? That whatever their original second round pick was, 35th, 36th, and you had all those picks stockpiled in the fourth. So if you could Jalen Polk and then one of Layden Robinson or Javon Baker.
Yeah.
Instead of those guys, you could have had Xavier Legette or you could have had Tyler Guyton or whoever, right? Patrick Paul. Like, starting to look like maybe investing those picks and moving up might have helped them out more.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and I think it's also tough. And you can go look up my wide receiver rankings. Like, you traded the pick that was Ladd McConkey. And Ladd McConkey's had a much better rookie season than Jalen Polk has. He's been much more productive. And Ladd McConkey's, the difference between the two of them was Ladd McConkey was much better and more dynamic at the top of his routes to create separation. He was a much better, not much better route runner necessarily, but like just a more dynamic route runner, more explosive route runner than Jalen Polk was in college. And so far, Ladd McConkey has been a hit for the Chargers, and your guy hasn't been. So that group of five, we said this at the time, Polk, McConkey, Legette, Keon Coleman in Buffalo. I think there was one more, right, that went in that run in the early second
Ladd,
round.
McConkey,
Coleman, Polk. There's one or two more.
I think that was it. Brian Thomas Jr. went.
No, I'm talking
that's 2025 draft. Hang on.
Well, Worthy obviously is one of them too, but he was
so Worthy went at 28.
Yeah.
Oh, Pearsall went at 31.
Pearsall's the other one.
Legette, Coleman. So 4 in a row. Pearsall, Legette, Coleman, McConkey. The last 2 picks of the first 2 picks of the second. The Patriots had the McConkey pick. They traded out. They moved down a couple spots for Polk.
So he's going to be compared to those guys, fair or not, for the rest of his NFL career. And right now it's looking like all those guys are contributing more to their teams than Jalen Polk. Although I will take a small victory lap on Keon Coleman because
he has been great.
Yeah, he's been exactly what I thought. All right, let's take this call from Tim, and then we'll wrap up the show. What's up, Tim?
Hey guys, let's do a Boston Sports Minute here. Does that Celtics loss bother you at all? I'm not sure how many teams would be in that game down 2 of their 3 best players, but I mean, it was the first good defense they faced, and they got held to 40 points in the first half. I mean, I'm glad they figured it out in the third, but it's still a little worrying. What do you guys think about Keita? You see anything real in him?
I love this.
Yeah, I'll take it off there. Thanks.
Thanks for the call.
We were literally talking about this earlier.
A little Boston Sports Minute. Why not? Through a throwback. My thoughts on the Celtics, I am never going to panic over a game in November. It's just way too early in the season for me to feel that way, and they've really played great outside of this first half last night in that game.
And late in the fourth quarter.
But I would say that the one thing that does concern me like a tiny little bit, I guess, with the Celtics is that right now they've been really reliant on like Peyton Pritchard and Derek White and those guys just hucking up threes and making them a little bit too much. But maybe that's just because, Porzingis and Jalen aren't playing and they become a little bit more balanced once those guys get back. But overall, I'm not concerned at all.
I'm not super concerned. The one thing from last night, and you kind of mentioned the need to make threes with the Warriors, I don't know why they didn't do it more, was they just came right up and played essentially like, when I say press coverage, I mean in the football sense.
Yeah.
Press coverage on the guys with the ball and dared them to drive to the basket. And that possession, the last possession at the end of the first half, here we go again talking about the possession at the end of the first half. It's I think it was Derek White and Drew Holiday or Peyton Pritchard and Drew Holiday. The two of them are just kind of standing next to each other at the top of the key, passing the ball back and forth. Well, the Warriors defenders are right there in their chest. Like Tatum needed to move off the ball or go to the basket or something. And it goes back to what's been a core problem for this team, which is when the three's not falling, what's plan B? Plan B's been attacking the basket, but their two best players in attacking the basket are Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis. So, to lose by 6 the way they played without those two guys, I'm not super worried about it. Late in the game, I think they could have had some better possessions. The one thing is it would have been nice to beat Steve Kerr after the whole Olympics thing, but Tatum played well. I do like Queta. Now, you called him Robert Williams 2.0.
I'll get to that in a second.
All right.
Just one really quick thought, and then we'll get to that. So last night, one thing that I did notice, and they love the high pick and roll action, and the Warriors kept on pushing them to further and further out.
Right.
And so now all of a sudden the high pick and roll is happening almost at half court, right?
Right, you're not able to just pull up the three.
Yeah, and I thought that was a big reason why, and we'll get to Queta here in a second, but the big reason why the Celtics were really successful with the high pick and roll is that they had that ability to get to the nail, right at the free throw line. And when you get to the nail, and then you would always have a guy in the dunker spot, right? And it just kind of opens up almost like in football where you have levels to the offense, where you have the 3-point shooter, you have the guy at the nail at the free throw line, and then you have the guy in the dunker spot right by the basket. And when the Warriors were pushing them out, how many times I felt like Jason Tatum, high pick and roll, is getting the ball at almost on the logo. And I'm like, well, this does him no good. You can't shoot from out here. I saw a little bit of that with the Warriors defense.
So now what you look for, and look, it'll change when Brown, they were able to play that way because Brown and more importantly Porzingis weren't in there, but a little bit of a blueprint game maybe for the Celtics, showing a way to play them, and we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised. I know they have the Nets Friday. Their next big game is they have the Hawks for the NBA Cup, I think, on Monday or Tuesday.
I kind of like the NBA Cup. Is that a bad take?
I hate that I like it. I wish they didn't do the nonsense with the floors.
I know the floors is nonsense, but I remember last year when they had to score a certain amount of points to make the knockout round. I was into it.
Look, it's fun. It makes the early. Now I worry they're going to expand it. Every good thing, don't take it too far. But
give your quick
anyway,
because we got to get out of here.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if they start seeing that defense from. They have the Hawks. They have the Cavs coming up. He's a good player. He's a good player. You know how I've long been annoyed that they don't seem to value height or size or ability at the rim.
They play basketball and they don't like tall guys.
It's true, but you have a 7-footer, can't shoot a lick, but he's a factor at the rim on both ends of the floor. I'm not saying that has to be your superstar. He's not prime Shaq. They shouldn't treat him like it, but he can give you a good 10 to 12 minutes a night, and when he comes in the game, the energy changes every time. When they put him in late in the third, early in the fourth quarter, and he blocks a shot or he puts down a big alley-oop or something, and for these teams that are going to defend the Celtics and take away the three, they kind of have to change it up a little bit when he's on the floor. Yeah. So I don't think he's Robert Williams. Robert Williams was another level of explosive.
That was my comparison.
Robert Williams is also 6'9".
But he's at worst right now, the way he's playing right now, he's discount Robert Williams, right?
So Robert Williams, remember, had that little bit of a jumper. He could also run up and down the floor. Queta's not as big of a part of the fast break.
Yeah,
as Williams was.
And Rob was a really good passer.
Rob was right, but
really good passer.
Again, I think just giving you. I'm blanking on the name. Who's the guy they had a couple years ago? They got at the trade deadline, and he was just no, they didn't. He played in Toronto for a long time.
Toronto?
No,
Are you thinking of Clint Capella?
No. It was.
That's who I think of when I see Queta.
He's bigger. He wasn't a great player, but
he's an energy big. You know, that's what Keita is. And
Amir Johnson.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's that we're like he didn't play a lot, but they put Amir Johnson in the game with all these shooters around him, and it was just like, all right, you can't totally crash the 3-point line because we have this guy, and he'd give him effort play. Now he was also 6'9", but I like Keita.
Perfect rim running 5, right? You know, just exactly what they need for their type of offense, and they're going to be spaced and 5 out and all that kind of stuff. So now you have a guy that can, be there at the rim with offensive rebound, dunk on dudes, all that kind of stuff. I really like his game, and I like how his game fits with them. And I also think that, you look at the East and you look at some of the teams they might need to go through. Like, imagine in a series against Joel Embiid and the Sixers. Yeah, he's going to be a pain in the butt to Joel Embiid because of how energetic he is.
Assuming Joel Embiid plays. You got another one like Jared Allen, good player.
Yeah, just, pain in the butt guy that, Joel Embiid doesn't want to run around with a guy like that. Like, he doesn't want to hustle on the boards with a guy like that. That's what Keita brings to the table. So I do like him.
How about some detailed Celtics talk from the Catch-22 guys?
There you go.
They didn't see that coming,
did they? Some people definitely shut us off. That's okay. We were 2 hours into the show anyways, and we had we're about to wrap it up. Really quickly to end this Boston Sports Minute, you have 30 seconds on the Red Sox offseason where they are apparently suitors for Juan Soto, which none of us believe.
I don't know about Juan Soto. I've seen today like Teoscar Hernandez, Garrett Crochet would be good additions. Would be righties, please, righties.
Sounds so much like the Red Sox. We're not going to go for Juan Soto, but we're going to go for Teoscar Hernandez.
Look, they're never going to get Soto. If they added like Hernandez and Crochet and another right-handed bat and the bullpen, like those 4 collectively would be more than Soto to me. Like they need multiple. It's like the Patriots, right? Soto is you add the quarterback, and that's going to make a difference, but at the end of the day, there's 8 other guys in the lineup, and they just don't have the pieces right now. I'd rather see them take a wider approach, but get some legitimate, like Hernandez, he's not Soto, but he's a legitimate middle-of-the-order bat.
Yeah.
Crochet's a legitimate top-end-of-the-rotation guy, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah. So tonight, Bruins tonight. See if they rebound from getting blown out again by the Toronto Maple Leafs the other night. So in my house, the Bruins are a big topic of stress right now in the Lazar household. So hopefully they turn it around. And tonight I'll probably watch that Bruins game. Maybe watch a little bit of Baltimore-Cincinnati.
That's going to be a fun game.
And I might crack open a little Bud Light. And it's easy to drink. It's easy to enjoy. It's Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. Thanks for sticking around and letting us do a throwback Boston Sports Minute from the Clintus days. People will remember that. It's a good time. You still do it, right?
Occasionally. That's usually an off-season thing. We don't do it during football season.
All right, we'll be back next week. The Los Angeles Rams, which I'm really looking forward
Stafford,
to. Seeing
Sean
McVay in person and saying, waving hi to a tight pants guy. Can't wait. But until then, signing off for Alex Barth, I'm Evan Lazar. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.